Ever imagine leading a unit, like prepping soldiers for combat,
Yeah.
even maybe managing, millions of dollars worth of equipment?
That's the life of an Army major.
It is. And
Now
today we are
deep dive
deep diving into how to...
into how to absolutely crush that interview using some insights and sample questions.
Straight from RoleCatcher's career guides.
Yeah.
And even if you're not planning on understanding, the skills we're unpacking today,
Yeah.
leadership under pressure, strategic thinking.
Managing diverse teams.
Yeah, those are valuable in any career.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with RoleCatcher's breakdown of what an Army major actually does.
Okay.
I was reading through their what they do section.
Yeah.
And it's way more than just giving orders.
Right. You're not just commanding other officers and soldiers. You're responsible for their welfare, their training, making sure equipment is maintained. It's a massive scope of responsibility. And that really comes through in this definition they provide, too. It mentions preparing for combat,
Right.
but also maintaining discipline and basically making sure everything runs smoothly,
Yeah.
even when things get chaotic.
Which brings up a point that might surprise some people. The work environment isn't always a combat zone. It can be a traditional office setting,
Really?
a remote base.
Huh.
It's really varied.
That is surprising.
Yeah.
Okay, before we get to those interview questions, I have to ask about this AI tool RoleCatcher has. I'm a bit skeptical of AI.
Yeah.
But their CV/resume builder claims to tailor your application specifically to the job you want, even optimizing it for those automated systems that scan applications.
Right.
Is that legit?
It's surprisingly effective. Their AI analyzes the job description, then suggests keyword skills and even formatting tweaks
Wow.
to make your application stand out to both human recruiters and the algorithms.
So it's like having a digital career coach,
Yeah.
giving you personalized advice. And there's that reverse matching thing too, right? Where employers actually find you.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's passive recruitment, but really powerful, especially in a field like the military where specific skills are in high demand.
Yeah.
You fill out your profile, highlight your expertise, and employers searching for those exact skills can find you. No more sending out hundreds of resumes into the void.
All right. That actually sounds pretty useful. Okay, let's get to the main event, those interview questions. RoleCatcher's Guide has tons, but we're focusing on the ones that really give you an edge in the Army major interview.
And for each one, I'll break down what the interviewer is really trying to uncover.
Okay.
And you'll guide us through RoleCatcher's approach to crafting a killer answer right.
You got it. So let's start with a seemingly simple one. How did you become interested in pursuing a career in the military? Sounds basic,
Yeah.
but I bet there's a lot they're reading between the lines.
Absolutely. This is about way more than just saying, I like the benefits or I'm a thrill seeker. They want to see genuine motivation, a deep-seated reason for wanting to serve.
RoleCatcher suggests focusing on your background and what sparked that interest. Was it a family member in the service?
Right.
A specific event? Maybe a strong sense of patriotism?
Yeah.
The key is being authentic.
And you need to tie that motivation directly to the role of an Army major. How does your reason for wanting to serve align with the demands and responsibilities of this specific position?
That's a great point. So let's say you've nailed that initial answer, shown genuine passion.
Yeah.
What kind of follow-up question might they hit you with to dig even deeper?
They might ask, what are some challenges you anticipate facing in this role, and how do you plan to overcome them? This tests your understanding of the job and your problem-solving skills. They want to see you've thought beyond the surface level.
Okay, on to a question that feels pretty universal.
Oh.
Can you describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision? Every interview has some variation of this, but I'm guessing for an Army major, the stakes are a bit higher.
Definitely. They're looking for evidence of sound judgment under pressure. They want to understand your decision-making process, not just the outcome.
And RoleCatcher's Guide really emphasizes that process. Don't just tell the story. Walk them through your thinking.
Right.
What factors did you consider?
Yeah.
Who did you consult? How did you evaluate risks?
It's about demonstrating that you can think clearly and decisively, especially when things are chaotic. And a likely follow-up would be, looking back, would you have made the same decision? Why or why not? This tests your ability to reflect and learn.
All right, for our last question in this section, let's hit one that's at the core of leadership. How do you motivate and inspire your team members? Again, seems like a standard question.
Yeah.
But the context here is unique.
Right. You're not just leading a team in a regular office. You're potentially dealing with life or death situations, diverse personnel with different backgrounds and motivations. It's a whole other level of leadership.
So how does RoleCatcher suggest approaching this one?
Share your leadership philosophy, but back it up with concrete examples. How do you build trust delegates effectively provide feedback,
Yeah.
especially in challenging situations? And this is where RoleCatcher's AI can be really helpful.
Oh, so.
Well, let's say you've used their CV/resume builder. The AI has already analyzed your experiences and flagged the ones most relevant to Army Major leadership. So when you're answering this question, you can pull from those specific tailored examples that the AI has identified as your strongest points.
That's a really smart way to use the tech to your advantage.
Yeah.
You've shared your leadership style, given solid examples. What kind of follow-up might they ask to dig deeper?
They could ask, can you give an example of a time when you had to motivate a team member who was struggling? This is about showing you can identify and address individual needs even under pressure. And again, you can lean on those AI highlighted experiences from your CV to ensure you're using your most compelling stories.
This is all great stuff. Before we move on, I do want to touch on something from RoleCatcher's overview that struck me. The career stages for an Army Major. It's not just about this one interview, right? You're stepping onto a whole career path.
Absolutely. And understanding that path can really inform your answers in the interview. They want to see you're thinking long-term, that you're committed to growth.
RoleCatcher outlines different stages, starting from entry-level officer all the way up to Army Major and beyond, and the responsibilities evolve massively along the way.
Right at the entry level, you're assisting senior officers learning the ropes. But as you progress, you're commanding platoons, leading training, then managing whole companies.
By the time you reach Army Major, you're overseeing large units of both officers and soldiers, supervising training programs, managing resources.
And it's not just about climbing the ranks, it's about continuous learning. RoleCatcher emphasizes the importance of advanced military courses, even pursuing higher education.
So even though we're laser focused on this interview today, it's important to remember that this is just one step on a much bigger journey.
Exactly. And understanding that bigger picture can help you answer those interview questions with more depth and vision. Now that we've got a better sense of the big picture, let's dive back into those interview questions. This next one from RoleCatcher's guide might seem straightforward, but it's a chance to showcase some essential skills. How do you prioritize tasks and manage your time effectively?
Oh, I feel this one.
Yeah.
Even in my non-military life, the to-do list never seems to end. But I'm guessing for an Army Major, it's next-level time management.
Exactly. The interviewer wants to see if you can handle the constant pressure. And shifting priorities that come with military leadership. Think about it. You're juggling training schedules, equipment, maintenance, personnel issues, potential combat scenarios. It's a lot to keep track of.
So I make a to-do list. Probably isn't going to cut it. RoleCatcher suggests describing a specific system, maybe a time blocking method or a project management tool. They even mention using their AI to help tailor your answer here.
Right. Their AI can analyze your past experiences and identify specific examples where you've demonstrated strong time management skills. So you can use those real-world examples to illustrate your system and how it works in practice.
So you're basically using the AI to pull out your best, most relevant stories. Smart.
Yeah.
What about follow-up questions? What might they ask to see if you can actually walk the walk?
They could ask, describe a time when you had to handle multiple urgent tasks simultaneously. How did you approach the situation and what was the outcome?
That's a tough one. It forces you to think on your feet and show how you've applied those time management skills under pressure.
Exactly. And again, having those AI-identified examples from your past can be incredibly helpful for structuring your answer.
All right, next question from RoleCatcher's guide. How do you handle conflict within a team or organization? Conflict happens everywhere, but I imagine in the military with its strict hierarchy, it can get pretty intense.
You're right. And the interviewer wants to see that you can resolve conflicts in a way that maintains discipline and unit cohesion. They're looking for someone who can be both assertive and diplomatic.
RoleCatcher emphasizes a collaborative approach, actively listening to all sides, finding the root cause, and coming up with solutions that work for everyone.
Exactly. And highlighting your ability to stay calm and professional even in heated situations is key. A potential follow-up here could be, can you give an example of a time when you had to mediate a conflict between two team members? What strategies did you use?
So it's not just about talking about conflict resolution in theory, but showing you've actually done it.
Right. And this is another area where RoleCatcher's AI can help you prepare. When you're building your CV with their tool, you can actually flag specific experiences that demonstrate conflict resolution skills. Then the AI analyzes those experiences and helps you articulate them effectively in your answers.
That's really helpful, especially for those of us who might blank out in a high-pressure interview situation.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to a question that's super relevant in a field like the military, which is constantly evolving. How do you stay up to date on industry developments and best practices?
This one is all about showing your commitment to continuous learning and professional growth. The interviewer wants to know you're proactive and invested in staying ahead of the curve.
RoleCatcher suggests showcasing a variety of methods: conferences, military publications, online courses, even networking. They really emphasize being specific, though. Don't just list activities. Explain how they helped you grow and adapt.
Exactly. For example, instead of just saying, I attend conferences, you could say, I recently attended a conference on cybersecurity where I learned about the latest techniques for protecting sensitive data, and I've since implemented these protocols within my unit.
So connect the learning to concrete actions. What kind of follow-up question could they ask here?
They might ask, what's a recent development in military technology or strategy that you find particularly interesting and why? This gauges your awareness of current trends and your ability to think critically about their implications.
All right, that makes sense. Now, I want to circle back to something we briefly touched on earlier, those career stages for an Army major. It really struck me how much the responsibilities evolve over time.
It's fascinating to see how the role changes as you climb the ranks. At the entry level, it's all about assisting senior officers and learning the ropes.
Then as you progress, you're leading platoons, training soldiers, making tactical decisions.
And by the time you reach Army Major, you're overseeing large units of both officers and soldiers, managing complex operations resources, and ensuring the well-being of everyone under your command.
It's a huge responsibility,
Uh,
but also incredibly rewarding, I imagine.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher's guide emphasizes that this kind of leadership role isn't for everyone. It requires a certain kind of drive, commitment, and willingness to face challenges head on.
Which brings us to another key insight from RoleCatcher: the importance of continuous learning. They recommend participating in advanced military courses, even pursuing higher education.
Right, and this dedication to learning and development is something you can highlight in your interview answers. It shows you're not just focused on the present, but on constantly improving and preparing for future leadership roles.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on interview prep. But I want to shift gears a bit and address something that really surprised me in RoleCatcher's guide: the value of a PhD in a military career.
It does seem counterintuitive, right? You think of military leadership as being all about tactical skills and on-the-ground experience.
Exactly, but the guide mentions that a PhD can actually be valuable for an Army major, especially as they move into more strategic roles. Why is that?
Well, the modern battlefield is incredibly complex. We're not just talking about traditional warfare anymore. There's cyber warfare, information operations, and the need to understand intricate geopolitical dynamics.
So a PhD could provide the deep analytical skills, the research capabilities, and the strategic thinking needed to navigate those complexities.
Precisely. And it also shows a commitment to intellectual growth and a willingness to go beyond the traditional boundaries of military training.
It really challenges the stereotype of a military leader, doesn't it?
It does, and it highlights how the future of leadership, even in the military, requires a more diverse set of skills and perspectives.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, let's tackle one final interview question from RoleCatcher's guide that really gets to the heart of leadership. Can you describe a time when you had to lead a team through a difficult situation?
This is where you showcase your ability to handle pressure, make tough decisions, and keep your team focused on the mission even when things get rough.
So what does RoleCatcher suggest for approaching this question?
They recommend choosing a specific scenario that really demonstrates your leadership skills in action. It could be a natural disaster, a sudden change in orders, or a mission that went awry.
And then walk the interviewer through the situation step by step, right?
Exactly. What actions did you take? How did you communicate with your team? What challenges did you face? And how did you overcome them?
It's important to highlight not just what you did, but how you thought and felt throughout the experience.
Right. That shows self-awareness and emotional intelligence qualities that are crucial for effective leadership. And don't forget to connect it back to the role of an Army major. How does this experience demonstrate your readiness to lead in high-pressure, potentially life-or-death situations?
Okay, so you've told your story, shown your ability to lead under pressure. What kind of follow-up question might they ask to assess your long-term potential?
They might say, How would you apply the lessons you learned from this experience to a future leadership role? This shows your capacity for reflection, growth, and continuous improvement.
That's a great point. So we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring the multifaceted role of an Army major, tackling some really tough interview questions, and even delving into the unexpected value of a PhD in the military. It's been a fascinating journey into this world of military leadership. I know I've learned a lot,
Me too.
and I'm sure our listeners have too.
Absolutely. We've really unpacked what it takes to excel as an Army major, from those crucial interview skills to the bigger picture of career progression and continuous learning.
And speaking of learning, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more point from RoleCatcher's guide that really resonated with me. It's about the importance of realistic expectations going into this career.
Right. It's not all about glory and battlefield heroics. The guide doesn't shy away from the potential downsides.
Like frequent deployments, being away from family for extended periods, and the inherent risks involved in a military career.
Exactly. And the guide emphasizes the importance of having a strong support system, both personally and professionally, to navigate those challenges.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's a demanding career path, and it's important to go in with your eyes wide open. But for those who thrive on challenged leadership and serving their country, it can be an incredibly rewarding experience.
Absolutely. And RoleCatcher's resources can help you weigh those pros and cons, understand the commitment involved, and make an informed decision about whether this is the right path for you.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the ins and outs of being an Army major, tackled those tough interview questions, and even uncovered some surprising insights about the evolving nature of military leadership.
And throughout it all, we've seen how RoleCatcher's AI-powered tools and career guides can give you a real edge, from tailoring your application to preparing for those high-stakes interview scenarios.
If you're ready to take your career to the next level, whether you're aiming for the military or any other leadership position, I highly recommend checking out RoleCatcher. Their resources are free to get started with, and they can help you unlock your full potential.
Remember the skills we've discussed today: leadership, strategic thinking, problem-solving, resilience. These are valuable in any field.
So even if a military career isn't your calling, there's a lot to be learned from their approach to leadership development. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing yourself to be the best leader you can be.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Until next time, keep diving deep.